Potrum is sent by Master Olm to find out more about the Ascoman people. While in Toros searching for the ambassador Alandra, he is lured to the docks and knocked unconscious by slavers. He awakens days later in a caged wagon in the valley kingdom of the Dwarfkin, arriving in the city of Arnholm to be sold off at auction. Meanwhile, Goran, Brother Goblet, and Hyaphis, along with Yegar and Osiris, leave the spider mine. Having only been in the mine less than an hour, they exit to what looks to be a different season. They surmise some dark magic has transported them in time. When they walk to Beldale, they discover 27 years have passed. Goran decides to return to the house of the Behedro Thum to seek counsel from his master, Tonchus. Brother Goblet and Hyaphis agree to go with him. For their part, Yegar and Osiris decide to make their way back north to Thronehelm. 27 years ago, when the party failed to arrive back, Julie, Dorvili, and the cleric Bilzadi returned to the house of the Behedro Thum. Dorvili soon after suffered a cracked skull and has been in a confused state ever since. The Skyhorns charged Julie with taking care of Dorvili on their estate and being a servant of the church as a way of continuing to pay his debt to Goran. When Goran returns with Hyaphis and Brother Goblet, the house of the Behedro Thum is in amazement. Goran's master Tonchus informs him that soon after his disappearance, there was in fact an uprising by the cult of Dawn Throne. The church discovered the cult was planning what they called the Next Awakening, which involved dark rituals to bring forth a monstrous force called the Behemoth. This ritual can only be performed every 28 years in line with the cycle of the luminaries. Since that time, the church has discovered much about Dawn Throne. There are cultists in a black mountain south of the valley, in the lands of the lesser folk called the Realms. They also know there is a place referred to as a charred castle, which may hold further clues. Both of these places are on rough maps Tonchus gives to Goran. She tells him since the time of his disappearance, several groups left on holy missions seeking out these places, but they never returned. She asks if Goran will attempt to find out what the cult has in store as the 28th year in the cycle of the stars is about to arrive. To leave the valley is a forbidden thing, and such a decision is not made lightly. Goran accepts the challenge, as do his compatriots. Working with Tonchus, Goran and other holy men decipher that whatever dark magic caused them to be propelled through time perhaps was attempting to send cultists to the next period in which they could awaken this thing called the Behemoth. Tonchus says she knows a scout in the city of Arnholm who is willing to take people south into the lands of the lesser folk. In Arnholm, the young Radura is being counseled by her adoptive uncle Engelard on the family business of acquiring sought-after goods and services. Some of their business is not exactly illegal, like acquiring slaves born outside the valley or leading Dwarfkin south to the lands of the lesser folk. After purchasing Potrum, her uncle gives her the opportunity to show she is capable of working on her own. She is to lead a group of holy men from the Behedro Thum south into Ascoman territory and then to the edge of the lands of the lesser folk. She's given Potrum, one of the newly acquired slaves, who speaks Ascoman. Though capable of breaking free of his captors, Potrum decides not to resist, but rather play at being submissive whilst he learns more about these lands. He will wait for the right opportunity for escape. Potrum learns that few of the slaves he encounters have knowledge of life outside of the kingdom, as they were bred into captivity. None of them speak Ascoman, which makes him a valuable asset. Goran and his party meet with Engelard and Radura, and they negotiate a price for the passage south. Engelard tells them his niece Radura and some servants will take them to the Ascoman forest. The next day they spend in Arnholm buying equipment and then passage through the Underriver to Silver Falls. While in Silver Falls, Potrum overhears Radura mention Faza Lazra and makes it known he knows this person. He also recognizes through their accent in pronouncing the term Fen of the Ten Sisters, which is an Ascoman name. Having experience with both of these unpleasant things, he tries to communicate with the Dwarfkin, but they brush him off. Potrum resolves to learn more of their language before attempting further communication. In Silver Falls, Hyaphis bumps into Durgan, an old friend from his scouting days. Hyaphis confides that his group is heading outside the valley on a worthy mission for the church. Durgan cautions him to keep a low profile and promises to keep the information in confidence. He also mentions that many years ago there was a big reward for information about their group, but they could not be found. Haiaphas decides not to share his story of passing through time, but merely mentions they were away on church business. During this exchange, Potram recognizes Durgan from an encounter a few years before on an island outside of the Fen of the Ten Sisters. Durgan, however, shows no sign he knows Potram. The next day, the party gets a barge across the lake to the Ascoman forest city of Iananutan. They spend the day getting information for further travel to the Ascoman capital of Tu-al-Etasan. According to Ascoman law, when the dwarfkin bring their slaves, they must have them wear a collar, which Rhodora puts on Potram and the other servants. A day later in the forest, the party is tracked down by some Ascoman voices calling out, "Julian heroes!" The Ascoman are with ebon blades from the Valley Kingdom. The dwarfkin sheriff explains they were sent from Thronehelm once Yegar and Osiris arrived many days previous with their story. He further tells them soon after their disappearance 27 years ago, the prince took a legion of mountain furies into the ice wastes in search of an ancient fortress they discovered. But contact with the expedition ceased, and subsequent searches for the lost fortress were unsuccessful. The king ordered many years ago for a scouring of the valley for the Julian heroes so that they may help in the discovery of what happened to the prince and his legion. None of the heroes could be found, and it has since been a curse on the conscience of the king. Yegar and Osiris' reappearance has given hope to the crown. The Ebon Blades were sent south to track down the party and bring them back to Thronehelm. Guran, knowing that there is only 10 months left until the potential reawakening of the behemoth, tells the Ebon Blades he cannot go back and is on a special mission. Meanwhile, Dorvili tries to pet one of the bears the Ebon Blades rode in on, and it bites him. He headbutts it, and the fight breaks out as the sheriffs attempt to arrest the party. The Ascoman and Rhodora's servants run off into the forest. During the fight, Potram makes clear his abilities in combat and subdues most of the Ebon Blades with a staff he takes from one of the fleeing Ascoman. The Ebon Blades are tied to a tree, and the party continues on their way, soon realizing Potram is still walking with them. They have seen him fight and do not wish to risk further injury. Potram takes off his slave collar, dropping it at Rhodora's feet, with Guran nodding his approval. They begin walking together. Rhodora is unsure of her role now, but Guran explains she is still needed and will be rewarded handsomely by the church once their mission is successful. Rhodora does not wish to be seen as a failure by her uncle and presses on as guide.